Good morning, everyone. Nick Powell's publisher of 1851 here for another coffee and analytics. So this month, there's a few things I want to talk about. And before I get into some of the things that are in the content below or the content that you received, I want to talk about Google Analytics and some of the voyage or journey that we're going to go on with 1851 to try to get ready for some of the shifts that are happening with new analytics. So part of the challenge that's going to come up is, anytime new technology shifts over, sometimes it takes some time to get used to. If Gmail switches over, it takes some energy to understand or get used to what is going on with the Gmail change. So the same is true with Google Analytics. But why is it so important to franchise development? One, if you're not using this as a tool, you need to be because it gives you tremendous insights. There's oftentimes we'll say to a brand, what is your growth goals? Where do you want to grow? And how are you going to get there? And so what we've done from a data standpoint is we started saying in franchising, it's not just about the lead. Lead is important. It's actually what's on the book end of leads that is the most important indicators to, are you going to have the tools to grow? On the front end is, are you actually getting traffic in that market? So you want to expand in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Are you getting people in Milwaukee, Wisconsin to your development site? And if you're not, then the odds of you having a prospect or candidate that would want to buy into that market decreases because you're going to have to convince someone in another city to buy into that market. Can that happen? And does that happen? Yes. But from an indicator standpoint, we want to get some lift in the cities that we're trying to target. And then the other bookend would be applications. So leads that turn into applications. Forever, franchisors have said, where are my leads and how are my leads doing? And they look at that as the primary indicator. In my opinion, the application ends up being the critical value of that lead because now they've progressed forward. They've taken the calls. They've gone through your own discovery process prior to most likely a decision day or discovery day. And so the application turns into one of the most valuable pieces that you're trying to elevate. So you could spend money till you're blue in the face on lead generation. If those don't turn into applications, then in my opinion, you're really wasting time. You're having people spend time trying to qualify candidates, chase them down on the phone, maybe not get the response. So because of that, because we need traffic and we need applications, this is where Google Analytics comes in as a super valuable tool for trying to find those indicators. So again, I go back to Milwaukee as an example. If we have traffic in Milwaukee, then the odds of us getting a lead increase depending on how much time it takes. And then the odds of an application increase as long as we're targeting the right people now that we've identified Milwaukee. On the front end of that, where Google Analytics is super valuable to the franchise development process, is that you as a brand should understand your data on what are your top markets and how much time and where are people coming from and how are they getting there in these markets. There's tremendous data behind that will help you decide what is your growth strategy. Now, there are some brands that say we're going to take a shotgun approach wherever you are. We're willing to build up a funnel or our growth strategy in those markets. And frankly, I've been somewhat averse to the shotgun approach historically because franchisees tend to have to build the brand awareness in that market. I'm getting a little bit more lenient on that stance because even in our company, when COVID hit, I would have said, no, we need to be in Chicago or Dallas. Those are where our core markets are. So, I'm sorry that you're in Indianapolis, but we need you in person. Mindset has changed because of COVID. Now we're in 23 different states. So it changes the mindset to say, all right, can we use tools and solutions to make sure that we're giving the scaffolding to our team I think the same could be true for franchisees. Where it doesn't work typically is if it's a 1 unit deal and I open up my 1 unit and the unit is not performing at the level of expectation that I had on other locations based on the information that was provided in item 19 in the FDD, then my expectations are off and performance is off. Therefore, my frustration could actually increase and get higher. Therefore, that the opportunity to grow within that market decreases, because now when other candidates come to the table and say, would you do this again? I may have some hesitation in my response, which then could kill that market. So that's where a single unit franchisee on an island by themselves might not work. Now, from a growth strategy, is there an area of opportunity to say, yeah, let's take the shotgun approach. Someone comes to us, we're based in Atlanta. Someone comes to us in another market. Does that give us an opportunity to go in corporately as well, and maybe even create a turnkey unit that can flip over and we could sell as an asset later on, possibly. But all that to say is, my original statement, as I went down this track, was Google Analytics is super valuable, because if I look and see these are my top 10 markets, I can make a strategic decision whether that's a market I want to push the pedal down. I was with a franchisor this week, and I'm looking at their data. And in the state of Florida, they're targeting the Tampa area, St. Pete, Clearwater, some parts of southern Florida. I said, guys, your data is actually pointing towards Jacksonville having the highest activity of people coming to the site. That means you have people that are further down the funnel, because we take the insight that it's going to take 6.4 months from impression to inquiry. That you've built up a funnel there. You have people there that are starting to think about, is this the brand that I want to buy? Could it be lacking a why now? Absolutely. Could that create a hesitation that is keeping people on the sidelines? Yes. But you know that you have a built-in brand awareness in that marketplace. Then what we did, that was on the development site. Then what we did is we went over to the consumer site and cross-referenced that information to say, do we actually have customers that are starting to come to the site in Jacksonville? And the answer was yes. It was the highest performing customer site. So that gives an indication that says when the franchisee opens, there's actually already a built-in awareness, which could all be super valuable towards the process of making the decision that is a growth market that you want to go into. The problem is with Google Analytics is they are making the change, this new technology, the new version of it. And I've played around with it. It is definitely not as simple and clean. There's a lot of data in there, but it's not as easy to figure out the pathway or to use it. Therefore, now it gets to the conclusion statement. Therefore, this ends up being a huge priority for what we're trying to do with Hello by Mainland, our technology, and with 1851 specifically, is we're going to try to reconstruct a Google Analytics solution based on all that information that we want into the data pool on the back end of 1851, so that we can make this very simple. What are the markets that have the highest penetration from a development standpoint? Align it with a consumer standpoint, and try to give some sort of conclusions or insights that could be super valuable to this process. So that is a big focus of ours as we continue to make solutions. And you're going to see some of the investments that we're making as a business into that category of data, so that we can give you the tools to be successful. If you are not on the 1851 platform, there's still tremendous data that you can pull from some of the content that we are creating. So spent the first 9 minutes talking about that. It is still coffee and analytics. I'll take a sip, maybe. Still hot. It's like one bite, everyone knows the rules. I'm going to burn my face off. Good coffee. Okay, so some of the things in the note this week or this month, what we tried to turn towards was what kind of information are candidates getting and how are they absorbing that? So we switched into what are people reading, so that we can gain some more focus into how can you impact franchise development through traditional PR. Now, this has been something that has been of deep interest to me for a long time, to gain the insights that are valuable back to, is there value in PR? What is the value in PR? We know in general, extra credibility when it comes from a reporter does help impact franchise lead generation. But my viewpoint has always been PR is not lead generation, it's lead awareness. And then the other things like a website ends up being the generator, because now the traffic has been made aware, they come to the site and they're encouraged to fill out a form, which is really the lead in the way that we're looking at them. So anyway, PR is lead awareness. So what we did is we said, what are the areas of opportunity? How can we build out a game plan that is valuable back to our franchisors from a PR standpoint that aligns with what we're trying to accomplish, which would be lead generation. Now, long ago, we had a client that had significant volume of leads. So what we did is we charted out, we took all the leads by week, 52 weeks, and then we tracked what kind of PR, did we get PR in that week, and what kind of PR. And what was interesting was there were two insights. One was the consistency of press was essential. So when we were in any week that we were in press, leads actually went up. So even though PR is lead awareness, it can be the thing that pushes the candidate over the edge. Because I've said this long ago, if a lead comes in today, it's not the immediate last tactic that's important. It's what happened, what was all the noise before that point. But it still gives you an indicator of when we have buzz, it does push people over. Like it's the game that I think of at the arcade, when you drop all the coins and the coins fall over the edge. I think it's the same thing. There's a lot of coins there that have been sitting there and collecting time before they fall over the edge. But sometimes the dropping of that next coin, PR moment, can push the next coin over a lead based on that data. So consistency aligned with PR is essential. That's why when we're trying to build a PR model, we focus on, depending on obviously the relationship, but how do we get to a place of 52 placements a year? That's going to be a good baseline of how do we keep you in the media as frequently as possible. This is partly on the strategy on 1851 from a content standpoint to say, all right, let's also build a piece of content every week. Now, the miss in the process, PR every week, content every week, is what are we doing with it? And that's probably the gap that needs to be closed the most is content comes out, PR comes out. Do we distribute it out to our cold lead database to try to influence them? Do we send them to our current leads, or we send them to our current franchisees? So what's the newsletter or email campaign strategy beyond getting these big wins or these moments? And that's something that we'll dive into probably next month. Okay, so when we asked franchisees what do they read, or in other words, where do they gain their information, the responses, I took all of the answers that we have in our profile polls for this year, which is now into the hundreds. This is the buckets that they fell into. Social media, many franchisees said this was their primary source of news. 1 inch farther, Facebook, LinkedIn were the only two that came up in this category. So insights, there's constant debate on, is Facebook a good resource? For achieving news interactions. People are using it for it, and franchisees are saying it. And LinkedIn is continuously getting more popular in the response when it relates to social media. There is an opportunity for us to extend that question and start saying how frequently are you on here to try to gain those insights. So that's something that we'll keep looking into. Local TV, local newspaper, the Daily or Community Focus Weekly. There were some specifics, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, and CNN that came up in the responses, which also guides us in where are some of the bigger national places we want to play with. Trade magazines, if they aren't already in the field. If they are already in the field, they're reading the trade magazines, which that's a good opportunity to build the like me. Someone came from accounting, now they bought into that business. Let's put them into accounting trades to talk about why they bought into that business. And then the biz journals are continuing to come up. We have to explore this a little bit deeper, because the next follow-up question on the biz journals, are you reading online or are you getting it in the physical copy? Because the biz journals do have their content behind a paywall, which means you can't really read it, which means this is where the aggregation of content turns into so valuable, because we can still influence through a Google search that you were featured in a biz journal. So there's another insight that we need to go through that. So I said PR is important, as is using content that has been booked and putting it to work, which we talked about is now that we've had a PR moment or we have a content moment, are we putting that into our newsletter distribution tool or solution to make sure it's getting in front of the right candidates? Every time we send out a PR placement, are we sharing it on social? Every signing and opening, should we put that into PR push? Wire local pitching, are we putting those onto LinkedIn? Are we pushing trade focused pieces on a regular basis? So what this did and why this was valuable is, and frankly, why Mainland even exists on the front end of an 1851 is so that we can build the consultancy. So we're not just saying, let's go do your PR. We're trying to do it more with purpose. Because if we do it purposeful, then the odds of us impacting your lead generation process is going to increase. So ultimately, now that we're through the first 7 months of the year on studying this data, there are some really strong conclusions coming into place. I am starting to think through what is the extension of this as we go into next year so that we can keep pulling these out. And then how do we extract all these things and make it into a concise and organized game plan so that we can actually build this strategy on behalf of our clients. So the two big things from this month that I'm thinking about from a technology standpoint: how can we take the value of Google Analytics and cross-apply that into our dashboard on 1851, making good progress there. I think the architecture is pretty sound. Now we're going to put it to work with our development team. And then on a PR front, what is the type of PR that has value in increasing the awareness of the franchise opportunity? And how do we put that to work in a positive way that obviously affects your brand, in a form of consistency, in a form of what is the message that really connects or resonates with your end user, and how do we then put it to use? So what this will end up doing, again, the aggregation of both the analytic, the data side, and the PR side, is this is going to give us a process that we can now build out a strong game plan that we're able to use to impact your business. I believe in some cases, some brands will hire us as an airplane, get on the airplane and say, "Hey, Captain, how does this do? And what does that button do? And I need to know more about how does this airplane fly to feel comfortable with it." And then there are brands that say, "We are an extension of the team. Therefore, cool, I like listening to all this stuff. But now you guys go figure out and put it to work and tell me when it's working." And both of those approaches are perfectly fine. This is trying to give a process into how do we extract the right data and do something with it, which is in line with what we're trying to accomplish from a strategy and business standpoint so that we can have positive effect on your businesses. So this was another edition of Coffee and Analytics. I took exactly one sip and talked way too much for 18 minutes, but hopefully you gained an insight out of this as a next step, as a next tactic for you. My recommendation is go open up your Google Analytics, click through and try looking at the Geo tab, which will give you a sense of where people are coming from. When you open that up, click United States, look at the traffic in a market, in all of your markets, highest traffic, and then look at other indicators, time on sites, bounce rates, to see where the most sticky people coming back and forth. Do we have leads in that market? No. Well, that means we've built up a funnel. They're sitting there. Maybe that's the market that we need to amplify our marketing in, because we have people where those coins are right at the edge. We just have to push them over. So if you have not spent time in your Google Analytics, a 15-minute tour and just playing around with Geo, you'll find some cool things, and you'll be able to do this for the near term before Google changes over. But hopefully at that point, we've made a solution on 1851. So thank you all for paying attention. Look forward to pulling out more data and having Coffee and Analytics a month from now. Take care.